What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl M Dunk here. What's up? Happy to be here for another video. Today we're resurrecting a series that I have not touched in quite some time. This is the Ask M series, where I, as a nutrition and training coach, answer some frequently asked questions about health and fitness, nutrition, training, all that jazz to help you guys along on your journey. So today we are diving into 5 tips to help decrease or potentially eliminate bloating. I'm not gonna make any promises, I'm not gonna make any crazy claims, but these are 5 free, no supplements involved, ways to improve or decrease bloating. So let's get right on into it. First of all, we gotta put this out there. There is a difference between bloating, which is a digestive response, and simply having food volume in your stomach from eating. I think that's a really common misconception, especially within the fitness industry. People, and I say this with clients all the time, people will think they're bloated, but it's actually just normal fluctuations to your look from eating food. Obviously, everyone is their leanest and tightest in the morning when they've woken up, they've been sleeping for 8 hours, not eating, not drinking water. And then obviously some of those lines soften as the day goes on, as you're drinking water, as you're eating food. That is not bloating. So there is a difference there. Bloating is an actual digestive response, generally an unfavorable one, generally an indicator that something is not going well with your digestive system, which is a problem, and we want to fix that. But keep in mind, there is a big difference between what it looks like when you've just eaten food, which is completely normal, versus actual bloating. So let's dive on into this. I do have some notes jotted down here because, as we know, I tend to ramble a little bit, right? So if you see me looking here, it's because I have notes. And then if anyone is curious about my background, I do try and vocalize this in these kind of videos, but I have a degree in exercise science from the University of Louisville. I also have been certified in nutrition since 2015. Yep, 2015 with the ISSN, which is the International Society of Sports Nutrition, and then also through Precision Nutrition's Level 1 certification. I am not a registered dietitian, nor am I claiming to be. I'm also not a doctor, but just putting that out there. This is meant to educate, not to be medical advice or anything like that. So disclaimer's done, let's get into it. Tip number 1 for decreasing bloating: chew your food. This is a huge one that I see, especially just in our fast-paced culture. It's very easy for people to be mindlessly eating, wolfing down food. I think we've all been there, but digestion truly does start in the mouth. And it's not just through the release of enzymes like salivary amylase, which helps to break down carbohydrate, but the actual act of chewing, that helps to break down food particles into particle sizes that your digestive system can easily handle. So when we're not chewing thoroughly enough, what happens is larger particle sizes are going into our digestive system, which, as I just said, part of why we want to chew our food thoroughly is to break those particles down into small enough particle sizes. So when we have larger particles going in than our digestive system necessarily wants to handle, bloating can be a really common response. So that's why it's super important to chew your food and chew it really, really thoroughly. Not just like, and then you're done, but like actually truthfully breaking down that food into like that like mushy mixture to head into your digestive system. So when we have particles that are a little bit too big going into your digestive system, that can result in anything from bloating to cramping to gas to any number of negative digestive responses, but a really common one is bloating. Now, tip number 2 kind of goes along with tip number 1. It's just to slow down your eating. So not only can just poor chewing result in particles that are too big going into your digestive system, making them harder to digest, but also when we eat really quickly, what tends to happen a lot of times is we're gulping in more air, right? Like I mean, that's the visual. But when people are eating really, really quickly, they tend to take in more air per bite than when we're eating in a more relaxed, calm fashion. So when you're eating more rushedly, so to speak, not only are you probably not chewing thoroughly enough, you're also probably swallowing a lot of air with each bite, which air is gas, and more air in your stomach can lead to gas and bloating. Tip number 3, lightly steaming or somehow cooking vegetables that you consume. So there are people out there that consume just a ton of raw veggies, and a lot of times it's a little bit too much in terms of just, that's a lot of roughage to break down. So if you find you're somebody that you commonly get bloated after eating veggies, but you genuinely enjoy them, and truthfully, we should all have lots and lots and lots of colorful fruits and veggies in our diets for a healthy diet. But if you're somebody that you find that when you have too many raw veggies, you don't feel the greatest, you're bloated, you're gassy, things like that, something that can easily help, but that will still make sure you're getting in plenty of good nutritious veggies in your day, is to lightly steam them or cook them. Whether you're steaming, whether you're roasting, whether you're sauteing, whether you're baking, whatever it is, whatever your preferred cooking method for your veggies is, that will help to start that breakdown process and make those veggies easier for your stomach to break down versus just fully raw veggies. On the topic of cooking, there's people that are like, well, doesn't cooking veggies, you know, reduce micronutrient availability or all this, that, and the other thing? Need you to slow down, need you to calm down. Some foods do lose a bit of nutrient density with cooking, but then some also increase their nutrient profile and availability with cooking. So as long as you're keeping a really nice variety and rotation of veggies in your diet and just foods in general, we should be getting a pretty thorough micronutrient profile. So we don't necessarily need to worry about the minutia of like, oh my God, what am I changing by cooking this kind of a thing? Because you're getting a broad enough array of nutrients from your diet as a whole. So we don't need to worry a ton about that. And especially if we're making those veggies easier to digest, we want to remember it's not you are what you eat, it's you are what you digest. So if we aren't optimally utilizing the things that we're putting in our bodies, then we're not optimally utilizing the things that we're putting in our bodies. And if we're continually getting negative digestive feedback, that means that our assimilation and absorption might be negatively affected. So I would say, hey, let's optimize digestion and just keep a wide variety of nutrients in there versus worry about like, oh my God, I'm cooking this vegetable and I might be like reducing the vitamin C by like 5%. It's a give and a take, right? Now, tip number 4, eat when you're calm. So this is kind of like a fringe one, and some people might think this is a little too far out there, but we want to keep in mind when we're thinking about optimizing digestion, right? We have 2 divisions of your autonomic nervous system. We have your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight, and then we have your parasympathetic, which is nicknamed your rest and digest. Wonder what happens here. So, digestion is largely a resting function. So when we think about that in the context of high stress situations are over here with your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight, your stress dominant nervous system. When we're in a more stress dominant state, we are shunting, energy away from those resting functions to support, hey, we're going into a stressful situation kind of thing. So this is part of why, when we train, if we haven't, given ourselves enough time between our pre-workout meal and our workout, we can experience some abdominal discomfort, some gastric discomfort, because we are now shuttling blood away from the digestive system towards working muscles. That's just like one example. But generally speaking, eating in a more stressed state, we're in those more stressed conditions and we're not in optimal conditions to digest optimally. So something you can do here is, make sure we're eating in a nice, calm environment. So if you're somebody that wears a smartwatch, a really easy thing to do is, before a meal, like take a look at your watch and say, hey, am I in like a normal resting heart rate range for me? And if you aren't, maybe take, a few full belly, deep parasympathetic breaths. We're taking a nice 4 count inhale, 8 to 10 count out exhale, and wait for that heart rate to come down to a more resting level. That can help to just ensure optimal digestion. We're not eating in a stress state when we're less likely to have just optimized digestive function. If you don't have a watch, you can palpate up this artery right here. You can just count, you can get a little stopwatch going. You can count how many beats you feel within a 15-second time frame and just multiply that by 4 to get beats per minute and see how far away from your resting heart rate range you are, or if you're within that range. And now number 5. Seems pretty obvious, but eat foods that agree with your digestive system. So if you notice a continual negative response from a particular food source, whether it's bloating, whether it's cramping, whether it's gas, when it's any combination of those things, that might be a sign that your system doesn't love that food so much, right? Right? And we should honor that, Obviously, having those things occasionally, if it's something you really enjoy, we can have some give and take there, right? But having those things on a regular basis is probably not the best for your digestion. Now, something to keep in mind is you may also be able to just try and adjust the quantity of that food that you're having. So say, for example, you have, 4 ounces of Brussels sprouts and you're like a balloon afterwards. You get that big, like, to your abdomen, feels really hard, really uncomfortable. Maybe you have some cramping, maybe you have some gas, and you're like, and that happens every time you eat Brussels sprouts. Maybe one day you try like cutting that serving size in half. So we only have 2 ounces of Brussels sprouts at a time, and we don't get that same digestive response. Then maybe it's a quantity per feeding based issue. But if you continually notice that something is causing a negative digestive response, it's probably best to stay away from that food, or maybe, you know, look into potential sensitivities, allergies, things like that. Some really common digestive triggers for people are dairy. This is one that I see with people having just huge individual variance in terms of how many servings per day they can handle. You know, some people are very resilient with dairy intake and they can eat dairy all day long and they're totally fine. Some people it's like, you know, hey, 2 to 3 servings max. Some people it's like, hey, 1 serving max. Another really common one, which breaks my heart even though I'm good with it digestive wise, is oatmeal. A lot of people get really bloated, really poor digestive feedback from having oatmeal, especially on a regular basis. Another really common one are the more, you know, really cruciferous, really sulfuric veggies, so things like broccoli, things like cauliflower, things like Brussels sprouts. Those are all really common digestive triggers as well. So it's not to say never eat them, but it is to say, hey, watch quantities potentially, and if you notice one in particular being a specific trigger, hey, maybe we swap that out for a different one. So those are my 5 more so lifestyle tips for improving digestion and decreasing bloating. I'm a fan of, hey, let's fix the lifestyle before we try to add in a supplement, whether that's a digestive enzyme, whether that's a this, whether that's a that. I would much rather try and see if we can adjust some lifestyle things with a client first, because truthfully, that's usually what's the most often people. I'm like, hey, do you eat really fast? And they're like, yeah, kind of. And I'm like, hey, do you chew your food thoroughly? And they're like, no, not really. Hey, do you eat a lot of raw veggies? Definitely eat a lot of raw veggies. Okay, maybe we can fix that. Are you eating in like high stress situations? Yeah, I tend to eat like right after an argument or, you know, something like that. I'm like, maybe we fix that. And then, you know, hey, do we have this response to this specific food all the time? Yeah, this happens pretty much every time, you know, I eat oats. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we find an alternative for that. And you know, we try, you know, 1 or more of these things, and then they're like, oh my gosh, my digestion is so much better with these tips. So those are some of my favorite 3 tips for reducing bloating or just trying to improve your digestive response. Again, I'm a fan of trying to adjust the lifestyle before trying to, you know, spend money on supplements and just kind of slap a band-aid on something. If you think you have a more serious digestive condition, obviously go to see a gastroenterologist, you know, maybe talk to a registered dietitian as well, see what they have to say, work with them in tandem, but try some of these very easy, relatively innocuous lifestyle tips first to see if that helps. So that is it for me today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, click that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And if you would be so kind as to screenshot you watching this video, share it out on social media so I can say thank you for watching and thank you for sharing, that would mean a lot. So love you guys so much. Hope you enjoyed this one. Hope this helps your digestive system out because it is very important for optimized progress and just you feeling good. You know, nobody feels good when their digestion feels off. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope it helps, and I'll see you in the next one.